are listening to the Starter Girls podcast with Jennifer Loading, where extraordinary decisions produce extraordinary results. These are my friends, these are your friends, and they are living the extraordinary. This episode is brought to you by Walt Mills Photographer with Glad Models Agency. If you are here in the Dallas or surrounding area and looking for some photography work, check out Walt Mills. You can learn more about him and his work at photosbywalt.com. Today is a great day to be brave. You might as well start now. You have the power to change your circumstances any day you decide. Let today be that day. Rise up, be amazing, be you, do you. All right, my friends, I'm super excited to welcome my guest to the show today. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her, and then we are going to jump into this. So Erica LeBlanc is an attorney working primarily in litigation, litigation support, and litigation consulting, representing business and companies. Apart from her legal practice, she speaks and teaches for-profit, nonprofit, and church forums discussing relational health, connectedness, and healthy confrontation. Her heart is to help people find wholeness within themselves, be who they are created to be, show up in their own lives, recognizing their sense of choice, and accept the benefits and consequences of those choices. She helps people do this most frequently using concepts such as connectedness, relational equity, boundaries, healthy confrontation, spiritual growth, and maturity. She believes faith in Jesus empowers us to make changes in our lives and truly be transformed in ways that change the trajectory of our lives. Her journey has given her the experience, insight, practical tools, and wisdom to help people navigate difficult seasons of life to find wholeness and empowerment in and on the other side. I love that, Erica. Erica has been practicing law for 19 years, and she holds licenses both in Texas and Louisiana. So welcome to the show, Erica.
Thanks.
Super excited to have you
Yeah,
here.
thank you for having me.
So this is going to be fun. So we're just going to have fun here today. So I kind of want to talk a little bit about, kind of backtrack us a little bit, because I know you're doing this speaking stuff, and you and I met off camera, and you were kind of telling about all the stuff that you got going on. So you've been an attorney for a while. How did you kind of move into some of, get into this speaking that you're doing? How did that kind of navigate for you?
So I would say, generally speaking, though, even through my legal career, I've always had a speaking role. So starting out as a trial attorney, that was always my niche, is to be vocal and to, get words out there, to speak things from my heart, from my mind, whatever it was. So I've always had a bend towards being an advocate vocally. And I think I would say probably around 2004-ish, I was going through a real transformational time in my life. And I really was very plugged in at my church at that time, and they had begun to ask me to start getting more involved in leadership places, and in speaking and being more involved in that regard. And so I think that's really kind of what started me down the path of doing speaking outside of my legal career. And what ended up kind of evolving from there was this amazing passion and this really sense of having purpose that was bigger and larger than what I was doing in my everyday life. And so I think that's really probably where the speaking thing came in. I would say there hasn't been much in my life where I haven't been a talker. But the love for speaking and public speaking, I really enjoy that. I really enjoy being able to impart things on a large scale and influence the trajectory of people's life on a large scale. I think that's a really, it's just a privilege.
Yeah. You're in a great place.
Yeah.
Obviously, because I love to talk. And it's so funny. The girl that was on here before you loves to talk. Like, I find all these loving to talk kind of people, we get along very well. So I love that. So I want to ask you kind of a fun question to backtrack. Did you know when you were growing up that you were going to be in litigation, be an attorney? Did you kind of have this path set out, or did you sort of kind of evolve into that?
I always get embarrassed by that question because
do you?
I actually decided in first grade I was going to be an attorney.
Did you? No, there's nothing wrong with that. I love it. It's kind of funny because we always joke about this because I'm kind of a debater. Like, I'm that person that really, like, if something's not right, like, I want to argue about it. Like, this is just a stupid rule. I really want to argue about it. And my mom used to always tell me, she'd be like, you would make a great attorney. But I didn't want to go to school and be an attorney. I didn't want to do all that. So I'm absolutely impressed that you did that. And I love that you just knew that. So I think that's great.
And I think I think when I was younger, I would get irritated when people would tell me that, because they, you know, you kind of chalk up being an attorney to argumentative.
Yes.
And that's really not.
Right.
You know, it's really about being able to stand up and say things that other people aren't willing to do, being able to have the backbone to address issues, which is my heart even outside of that. It's more of an advocate, being an advocate for other people who can't stand up for themselves. Yeah. And so I did hear that, but I was like, that is not what we do. That's not what we do. That's not the heart. Right. But I did, I did decide as a very little girl that that's what I was going to do. And at that age in my life, especially, if I had a goal, that was it. That was going to happen.
I love it. No, I think that's amazing that, you know, because a lot of times, you know, like I have 2 adult children. I have a teenager, and, you know, all of them, you know, it's so funny. We're having the conversation with my son now, like, are you looking at any colleges right now? I'm like, he's not, none of those. I'm like, okay, well, what are you looking at? Do you have any idea what you want to do? Right. And I think most, you know, even going into college, a lot of people really don't know what they want to do. And I certainly did. I mean, I studied accounting, and I'm not doing any of that now. Like, I can't even imagine doing that any longer. Like, I would just die. Not that it's a bad thing. It's just my personality couldn't sit and do that all day. So I think that's impressive, and I don't think there's anything to be embarrassed by. I think it's great.
No, it just
yes, and you're definitely you have that personality. I think that is so great for that it really, and you're right, it is about having the backbone, standing up for people, and in your case, businesses and companies when they need that representation. So I love that. So let's talk a little bit about your speaking. You talked about how you got into that, and so I want to really dive in, I guess, a little bit about what you do, like what you offer people when you go in and do these kinds of conversations. Would you share a little bit of that with us? Just kind of like what you do? I think, because I know this is a passion of yours, and so I feel like you're going to have some words you want to say with this.
Yeah. So I would say, before I go like with what's most recently been the thing I've been addressing the most, the thing that I've always come back to from a speaking standpoint, so if we have conversation or I'm speaking in front of a group, there is always going to be conversation around the concept of relational health and connectedness, and our need to be in relationship with other people and to have that on a deep level, and the things that prohibit that and the things that propel that. And so I think that being kind of a mantra of my life, in addition to the fact of really being a person who recognizes this sense of choice, and I think that is a huge deal for me. You have to recognize your sense of choice in your life to be able to take ownership in your life, to 100%. Show up in your own life. And so I think the marriage of those two has kind of pushed me in this thing where I'm doing a lot of speaking about things about healthy confrontation and conflict resolution, which really is less about conflict resolution and really redefining some terminology so that people can take it and apply it in their life in a way that's not scary for them. And they place value on it, because you're not going to implement and do things that you don't have, you don't place value on. And so I would say more recently, I've been doing a lot of speaking on healthy confrontation. And that being really the medium by which we address our issues in our life, the way we show up in relationships. And no matter what your gifts are, no matter what your talents are, whatever you're doing in life, they are not just for you, they're for other people. Right. And so for you to do anything that's fulfilling in your life, it's going to require you to be connected to others. And so learning to navigate that well is going to determine the amount of success you have in your life and the amount of fulfillment you have, not just doing what you're doing, but in bringing in those relationships that are going to be meaningful to you through those processes. 100%. And so I would say those are kind of like mantra things that I talk about, that I enjoy really helping people step into, finding their voice, recognizing their sense of choice, not just recognizing, hey, I have a choice, but owning the consequences and the benefits of those choices. I think it's really important that when we make decisions that we count the cost and that we make the choice, so that if it goes wrong, we said, okay, I made that choice. This is the consequence. I understand that that's my consequence. And therefore, I'm going to learn from that and make a better choice next time. And what that does is really empowers us in our lives, because we realize we are really shaping our lives with our choices, and we're not victims in our life.
I love it.
We're not the kind of people that life happens to us and we're just rolling with the punches and we don't have a choice. And so I think that's been a real big thing for me. I think if you run alongside me at any place in time, that's a place I challenge relationally with my friends, where I'm like, really, like, if they feel in those places to say, hey, you don't have to do this. You do have a choice. And I think people just more often than not kind of take this passive role where they think they don't have choices. Right. And even if your choices are not the desirable choices, you still have choices. And so I think there's just power in knowing that and really implementing that in your life and using it as a tool to help in navigating your life. Is really important.
Yeah. So two things that are coming to mind when you're talking about this. One's personal responsibility.
Yes.
That's the thing that's coming to mind
Huge.
because sum all that up. That was very well put. But if I wanted to sum it, it's just personal responsibility, right? It's taking accountability for your actions and how they affect you. And there was something else I was going to say that you said that was really good. Like these things are just popping out in my mind. I think that just having that, it was about the choices, taking the benefits, the pros and the cons that come. Your choices are always going to either positively or negatively affect you. But the thing that I think that's really good with that is when you own those choices, even when you have those negative situations, if you can find the lesson to be learned in those negative situations, there's growth that comes out of that. And I think so often people look at these choices and go, something bad may come from this, and I want to deal with that bad. That's that let's forget the confrontation. Let's avoid it. I don't want to deal with that. But there's something to be gained from that. That's the growth. That's the part of the maturity. That's the part of getting better at having that connectedness in those relationships. So I think you're saying so many good things. And if I just wanted to sum all that up, it's just take accountability for your choices, right? So I love it. I'm talking about this all the time about, the social responsibility that we have as people. And a big part of that social responsibility is taking accountability for ourselves, taking accountability for our decisions, our actions, our thoughts, what we say to people, how we behave, all of it, because we affect other people. And we can't always control what everybody does, but we can control what we do.
Correct.
And we always have a choice.
Correct. So it takes that posture of moving from that victim-y type mentality and into one that's really one of power and self-management. 100%. Where I can't control everyone else, but I control myself. I can control my responses. I control how I show up and how I react in these and respond in these places. And that is powerful. That's powerful in your life.
I agree. It gives you power. And it does give you a sense of control. It's a lot of, even when I'm working with people on mindset. So a lot of that stuff is a lot of what I'm doing is about that personal responsibility and the choices. And I'm much the mindset that you own those things. You own everything you do. And so I tell people all the time, when you make those decisions, the power in that comes in the fact that you know that you own that. You own it yourself. And now you also know that if you fall off course, if you, because I'm all about teaching sustainability and consistency. That's my big thing is consistency. Is that even a word? Consistency. I make up my own words sometimes, Eric. I talk so much. Sometimes we just come up with our own things. But I'm all about this consistency thing. And so when I'm telling people about building, about building routines and building structure in their life with their choices, that the power comes when you know that you're having this growth is when you fall off and you get back up the next day because you made a decision to get back up and do it. That removes you from victim to winning mentality.
That's right.
So it's everything I'm doing is really resonating to me, or what you're saying is resonating to me because it's what I do.
Right.
So awesome stuff. Okay, so some fun questions. I want to get into some mindset and success with you because obviously you've had some incredible success. I didn't even mention your awards that you got in law school. So amazing stuff. You've done very, very well in the things that you're doing. So when you are going after something, a goal, anything that you're trying to pursue, what does that mindset look like for you? How do you tackle those projects? This is always a fun one for me.
Gosh. Okay. So I am probably on the front end. I'm a pretty heavy thinker. So I would say on the front end, ideally I would like it to first resonate in my heart, as something like, this matters to me. This is something I really want to go after, and kind of fleshing through that it really matters to me. And then once I've done that, I think I start going into the process of what are practical steps I can take towards meeting that goal? What are the pros and cons? Having conversations with people who have already taken those steps. What does that look like for them? And starting planning in those directions. I feel like probably the front end piece of getting my heart in line with this is something I want to go after, because I think anytime we have a goal, separate and apart from a work thing,
right?
Okay, because a work thing, it's like you just do it,
yes,
right? You just do it. But things outside of that, like life goals and big important steps in your life, or changing the trajectory of your life, those are processes that really are, you got to count the cost. It's going to require sacrifice. It's going to require your time. It's going to require your resources. And so really making sure that they are things that matter to you. I think as I've gotten older, the more I've really realized those things that I really heavily invest myself in outside of work need to matter to me.
Yeah.
They need to be life-giving to me.
Right.
They need to be things that do not feel like an obligation to me, but feel like something where I get to show up big in my life. And so I think getting on board, once I'm there, then that's when I start reaching out and having conversations about what can this look like for me? What are practical steps I can take? I like small practical steps because 100%. It makes me feel like I'm gaining some momentum, that I'm taking steps forward. If the first few steps I have to take are monumental, then that tends to really slow me down and not get me started. So sometimes just taking some small practical steps really help me start feeling like I'm taking ownership and I'm moving in that direction. It gives me confidence. It gives me, I guess, encouragement to kind of keep going. It emboldens me with every small step. So I would say those are kind of some things I do.
I love it. I love the consistency in the building. There's the wins that you're getting from that, and it's all about the building your confidence as you're going along. And a lot of times people jump into things, and I always go back to the gym analogy because I used to teach aerobics, and like every January, you know how it is at a gym. I don't know how it's going to be this year, but typically a gym, January, everybody piles in because at New Year's resolutions kick in, and they're like at the gym for like 4 hours a day. And you used to joke about this because my members would come into my class. I no longer teach, but this is back in the days when Bally Total Fitness was still around. And these members would come in, and I would just say to them, give them 6 weeks. Just give them 6 weeks. They're going to be out of here. Just be patient. And you just got to let them run their course because they come in and they're full throttle and they do nothing with consistency. It's all about all or nothing. Go in, dive in. And so, I totally can get that because that's exactly the way I operate. Like, I have to do things. I am a guns a-blazing person, meaning I do get excited. I'm ready to go. We're going to cross that bridge when we go there. I'm not going to plan for a long time because if I do, I'm going to be over it, talk myself out. But I do have to do little things at a time to build up. And I'm all about that because it helps build the confidence. It gives you the tools you need to say, hey, I can do this.
Yes.
I got this.
Yes.
And it's not like you look at this big goal and you go, that was huge. Like, how am I going to go from A to Z? Like, I need all the steps out of the middle gone, right?
Yes.
But if you can take one little step at a time, the Z doesn't look so far.
Exactly.
So I love all that. That's good. I love it. So, and then definitely it's helped you get through these things. I mean, just, to get through law school because that is no easy thing to do. And so I admire you for that because no, it is not an easy thing to do. And so you definitely have to have that discipline and tenacity and that grit and just persistence to push through. So good stuff. Yes. So I don't know that I asked you this question, but I do want to ask you this because I think it's a fun one. In Erica's eyes, and you've kind of touched upon some of this stuff already. In your eyes, what does success look like to you? What makes you feel successful?
I would say the two biggest things, and this ties into what I'm doing to begin with. I would say the two biggest things are having healthy relationships with others that are really meaningful to me. I am a very relationally driven person. And so I derive a lot of sense of value and feeling like I'm making a contribution in the world through relationships. And so when I have really deep, meaningful relationships, that really feels very successful to me. When I'm loving people well, when people are loving me well, like that's a really mark of success. And I would say the second thing is really doing something, not just that I'm good at. That doing something you're good at can kill you.
I agree.
I mean, it can really kill you. It can suck the life out of you because you can be good at something and it not be fulfilling at all.
Right.
So I would say the other thing is really doing something like that really capitalizes on your talents, on your gifts, a place that, that's really life-giving to you, where you really feel like I am uniquely being able to bring something into the world that matters to me and that's life-giving to me, that I feel like I'm putting something out in the world that really matters, that other people can't give the way that I can give. Yeah. And it's not about uniqueness in the sense of, oh, I have this invention nobody's ever heard of. It's about showing up uniquely as yourself and doing that in the gifts and the talents that you have and finding those places where you're gifted and really allowing that to be something that you can give to others. Yeah. And so I think when I am operating in those places, I really feel an immense amount of gratitude, which propels you in so many different directions and a lot of fulfillment in life in general.
It's something interesting too, is that everybody that comes on this show, pretty much everybody, and I'm talking everybody's coming from different walks of life, different types of professions. I get a lot of entrepreneurs on here, but the common thread, and I'm going to say this because the interview that I just did before you, it was a similar thing. It's all about this connectedness. It's all about relationships. And really, that's what it is for me too. I think it's for most of us, it's really about the relationships. I think there's always something to be gained from that, learned, and I think it's powerful. And I just find it so interesting that, you know, you can have people that very different personalities, but we all have that same basic need of human interaction and connectedness, you know? And so I'll share this with you. I think it's so funny because for many years, so I was on my friend Kaylee, who was just in here doing her show. She's got this show that got picked up by the Country Music Network, I think is a station. I was on one of the guests on her show today, and she asked me the question of, and this is going to go back to you knowing you wanted to be an attorney. So she asked me the question, when I was a kid, if this is how I was. And I said, yes and no, because here's what happened. And talk about finding your talents and all of this. It's interesting because as a child, yes, this is how I was. I was very gregarious. I had a lot of friends. I was that kid that would be like, hey, let's go in the backyard. We're going to create a business. Does anybody want to make money? 7 years old. We're going to be talking about how we're going to make money. We went mowed yards. We'd make these little stupid little craft things. And, you know, and I had my friends that were like, okay, Jennifer, we're like so done. Can we just go play chase or Barbies? And I'd be like, okay, bye. I'm going to go play with the other friends, see if she's ready to do this. But somewhere along the line, between the time, you know, you get into middle school and you start going through all your changes and everything, I became very withdrawn, very introverted. And that lasted well into my early 40s. I mean, you're talking a very long time. And so for a long time, I always thought, you know, I was shy and introverted. And so I did those things like studied accounting, went into marketing. I was in the network marketing space. This year would have been my 20th year. I'm still technically in there. I'm just not doing anything with it, but really thought that was going to be my calling, and then could never figure out why I would have this success. You know, I earned several cars in the company, did very well, but then I'd fall off. So I'd have this success and I would come back down. And I told this story on her show this morning about this one day, you know, I'm in my back office and I'm walking on my treadmill, and I just gotten done doing the strength finders. And it was like this light bulb moment went off. And I may have shared this with you, where I recognized where my gifts were, like what my superpowers were, and why I was having so much trouble in the space that I was in, because there were things that were not lining with who I was as an individual, but also not my core values. And so while I loved, you know, exciting people and getting people excited about visions, whatever that vision is, it has to be my vision. It has to be my creation, my process, my thought. It can't be somebody giving me the vision, trying to sell me on their vision, because that doesn't align with who I am, and whatever I'm representing has to align with the core value, like all around me. So it was like I had this epiphany moment where I realized, I'm like, no, I'm not shy, and no, I'm not introverted. I love talking to people and having conversation, and I love getting people excited, you know? And for so long, I felt bad about a lot of that stuff, because I used to get in trouble for talking all the time when I was young, and, you know, I was told I talked all the time and too much, and I'm like, no, that is like my gift. That is what gets people excited, you know? So I think there's so many things you've said here that are so great about just finding. You're right about the part about doing something that you don't enjoy doing, because like I said, I couldn't imagine I have accounting friends. My mother was an accountant, but I was going to do the same thing. Nothing wrong with the field. Personally, I couldn't do it all day. I'd just be nuts. I'd be like, we're going to have to get out of the numbers and go have coffee, and let's talk about something else, and we'll delegate the numbers. Right. You know?
Yes.
So
I mean, on a side note, I can't imagine a life where you're shy and...
I know, isn't that funny? Yes, isn't that funny?
That is funny.
People that have known me for many, many years can tell you plenty of stories. Like,
well, I can relate in this way. When I was younger, I feel like sometimes when people would tell me I was intense, and I always took it as a very negative thing. Yeah. And then I'm feisty. Well,
you are.
I am.
Yes.
Cajun, French, and Italian. And so you can only bleed so much of that out of me, right? And I think growing up, I felt like this, like I was supposed to be somehow just this meek, mild thing in order to be, like, that's what people wanted or something. And I was like, coming into that, like, realization of, I am not created that way. That is not what I bring to spaces. 100%. And, like, part of my intensity is what allows me to achieve so many things and allows me to go after things. And part of my feistiness is what makes me so dang fun, right? Like, so I think there's a lot of things that, like, when we're younger, we don't know what to do with those things because it's not like everybody else. And when we really come into our ownership of how we're created and really step into those places of this is how I'm created. I can accept that, and we quit fighting against the grain and learn to like embrace those parts of ourselves, and not as an excuse way. You steward it. My intensity has to be stewarded. Yeah. You know, I don't just get to be intense. I don't just get to weigh down on everybody all the time.
Right.
I steward that, but I'm aware of that, and I don't try to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And so I think that's a huge, that's very, that is going to help you show up in your life in a way that's authentic to you.
Well, I'm going to make you feel a little better here because I used to get told I was pretty intense too. I've kind of chilled out a little bit, but I was pretty intense about things. But you know what? Hey, it's who you are, and it gets things done. And that's what I tell people. You are who you are, and just own your superpower because whatever your gift is allowing you to excel at what you need to be excelling at, right? Because can you imagine if you had to be an attorney and you walked in and you're just like laissez-faire about life, and you have to come in and you're trying to litigate a case for your client, and they're like, these girls are showing up like Legally Blonde today.
Right.
You know, I mean, seriously, you have to own it, and that's why you're doing what you're doing, and you're good at what you do. So, and I think that's what's huge. And I think you said so many things on this show. This is going to be a great show for women, I think, in the end, just be about owning your superpower and really being proud of who you are. And it took me a very long time to get to that point. It's like I told you before the show, when I used to do this show, you know, I'd go back and I'd beat myself up. I'd be like, why did you say that? And how many times can you, Chris knows, we talk about it. How many times can I say I love it and that's awesome? Like I'd say it and I'd be like, Jennifer, you said that like 10 times in the show. Like how many times can you say that word, you know? And then I started making a joke out of it. Funny thing is I don't even say it that much anymore, you know? But I made a joke out of it. I'm like, I'm going to count next show how many times I say it. So I think you just have to find humor in yourself and accept your stuff and roll with it.
Yes.
So you're doing good stuff. I love it. I love what you're doing. I love that you're doing the speaking and all of that stuff. It's awesome. So I want to switch gears, do some fun questions with you. This is easy. You will be fine. They're just fun rapid fire. I always like to do this because I feel like it kind of shows the authentic side of you, the other side of you, besides being the corporate or whatever, the serious part of it. So, all right. So are you a morning or a night person?
100% night person.
Are you?
Oh,
I would not have even guessed that.
This is one part that's hard for me in life because I really wish I was a morning person. I feel like life could be so much easier if you're a morning person. But every ounce of morning time is 100% self-discipline. There is zero want or desire in that. And so I am definitely a person that tends to really get going at night. I can, always push through at night. In the mornings, it's hard.
Get that second wind. Yeah. I used to be that way, believe it or not, for many years. So just to show you another thing I changed, I used to be a night person. And I don't know, somewhere along the line, when I went through my health crisis, I just really kind of shifted gears and and maybe it was because I wasn't sleeping a whole lot at the time. Like I was kind of like up all the time. And so it just happened. But I got to where I got really scheduled, with my eating habits and stuff. So I actually love the mornings now because I can get so much done. It's like the world's kind of still sleeping. And I just feel like I can tackle so much. But then the downside is that at night, I'm not very good socially.
Yeah. Well, and
I start going downhill.
People always say, well, you'll have kids and then you'll change your clock or whatever, which I haven't had kids yet.
Right.
So I'm like, but I have been getting up in the morning for 20 years.
Yeah, and you're still just
all
not
week
digging
long.
it.
And on the weekends when that alarm doesn't go off, I sleep in.
You're like, forget it.
Yes. So it never, that doesn't come natural for me. I do stay on a schedule for the most part, but if I'm left to my own vices,
you'd be like, forget it. You're
absolutely,
just gonna do it all at night.
I would sleep all day.
We're gonna show up at court at night. Can we just change the court system, please?
Absolutely.
It's great. I love it. I wish I could have. I wish I could. My son got a job, and I'm so excited because he got this job at this bubble tea place. And he's 16. He got promoted to shift manager, which is so exciting because he's only 16. It's like the coolest thing ever, be shift manager. But they weren't closing until like 11 o'clock at night. I get up at 5 every day, so you imagine how my sleep schedule. I'm like, this job is not working out for your mom. Like totally not working out. Well, last night he came home and it was like 10:15, and I'm like, why are you home?
Yeah.
I thought you closed. And he says, no, they changed it now. We're closing at 10. I'm like, yes, thank you, Jesus. I can go to bed before midnight. I'm like, that job is like killing me, and I'm not even working it. So I'm like, this is just not working out. Like, you need another job. Find another one. So love it. All right, next question. Cat or dog person?
I was really hoping you wouldn't ask that question. Because I am not an animal person.
You're not. Hey, it's okay. It's okay. You don't.
I am very allergic to cats.
Are you? You don't have to be an animal person.
I'm very allergic to cats.
No judgment from me.
Yeah, and I'm just not really an animal person.
It's okay.
when I was really young, I wanted animals, and
Yeah.
my parents wouldn't get me animals,
Mm.
and they didn't get a dog. They never got me one, but they got a dog when I was like 14.
Okay.
And now all of a sudden I'm wanting to be cute, my hair fixed and dressed, and they got a hunting dog because we lived on the lake, and so the dog would run out of the lake and come jumping
Jump
all over
all
me
over
and frolic
Yeah.
all over me, wet and gross, and
Right.
I would be just repulsed.
Yeah.
And so that
just kind of shaped
that
it.
shaped the relationship with animals after that. I love horses though.
Do you?
But
That's
yeah.
so funny. Well, they say, like it's like the first 10 years of your life that everything's sort of kind of morphed, into
Yes.
your belief systems and stuff. So they just mess that up because they didn't get you a dog early enough. They
Yes.
waited too late to
Somehow
do it.
my brothers both are
They
dog
like 'em?
people. Yeah, but
Yeah. I grew up around them. So we've had pets like my whole life. I can't even imagine at this point, like I still have pets. I can't, like, even my kids, like, I'm going to have pets. I just can't imagine because we've just done it forever, but I totally respect that.
Yeah.
Totally get it. And the good side is you don't get a dog. If you don't want one, you don't get one, right? Like somebody that gets a dog.
I would never be mean to an animal.
Yeah.
I just know that I would not give them the attention and care that they need.
Right.
So
That's okay.
Yeah.
So it's all good. All
Yeah.
good. No judgment for me. Okay, so what is your favorite food?
Oh God. My favorite food. That's a really hard one. I love seafood.
Yeah.
That's probably really far up there. I love seafood. I'm a big vegetable person.
Are you?
And my favorite vegetable is eggplant.
Eggplant.
I'm like obsessed with eggplant.
Yeah.
But that kind of goes in and out, but that tends to stay something I like. And maybe because I never overeat it. And I mean overeat it like in consistency, not at one sitting. But I don't know. I'm a big vegetable person. So
It's good. I like it. I like vegetables too.
And my favorite snack is popcorn.
Popcorn.
Yeah.
That's good. I'm not a big popcorn eater, but
I love it.
my snack would be ice cream if I want. But that and I love chocolate. Like I just discovered chocolate like in my 40s. Like I've hated chocolate my whole life. And then one day I just realized I love dark chocolate. I'm like, what?
That's the same. I did not like chocolate at all growing up.
I don't know what.
And I like dark chocolate.
My
now.
mother's like, you are so weird. She's like, where did that come from? I'm like, I do not know, but I can eat chocolate every day, like every day.
I'm not like that, but I do like dark chocolate.
Yeah, me too.
But I did not like it. Growing up, I was like vanilla.
Me too. And we should stop talking about food because I'm hungry.
Yeah.
All right. I'm hungry right now. Okay, so this is a fun one, Erica. If you were stuck on a deserted island,
Oh God.
you've got food you can eat.
Okay.
What would be one thing you'd have to have? Like one thing.
Deserted island.
Which is a trick question.
Do I have friends?
You can bring a friend.
I think if I had a friend, I would probably be fine.
You can bring a friend. It's totally fine. You can have a friend.
Yeah,
I've had a lot of people say people.
If I probably a significant person of some
Yeah.
sort, like whether it was a good friend or a spouse or, someone who I could do life with.
Yeah.
I think I could make it. If I was stranded by myself,
Yeah. That'd be hard.
I think that would get really hard after a while.
Yeah, and this goes all in with what
Yeah.
you've said, this whole show about the connectedness.
Yes.
It works. It totally
And
works.
I am pretty much an ambivert, so I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably a little more extroverted, but I need downtime by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't need that much downtime
Yeah.
by myself. Where
I
I
can
need to be
understand
on
that.
a strand, if I was stranded, disconnected from people, I think I would get real unhealthy real quick.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. Okay, so last fun question I'm going to ask you. This one's fun. If you could be any superhero or a character for a day, what would you pick?
So I'm just going to go with what's been most relevant lately. I just recently saw the new Mulan.
Oh.
And I always like the cartoon, and I really like the show. I think because, so she had a lot of like boundaries, that were, things culturally that she wasn't allowed to do because she was a woman. And and she had these unique giftings that weren't socially acceptable because she was a woman, and her ability to like overcome that, embrace that, and like, when she was taking off her armor, taking off her hair, and then showing up to the fight, like, I'm fully woman, I'm coming in my gifts, I have all this to offer. Like, to me, that was super powerful.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, I'm not concerned about what you think is okay and what's not. This is what I have to offer the world. I'm going to be fully myself. I'm going to show up big. And I'm going to own that. And I'm going to rock it. And, like, I loved that. I thought that was really powerful.
Yeah.
So,
I want to ask you one final question before I throw this out or get this over with, just because I think you're powerful in what you say and very, I guess, eloquent in your wording. So if a woman was listening to this podcast right now and she was going to maybe step out into something new, something she hasn't done, what kind of advice would you offer somebody just wanting to maybe start something new or just pursue a goal, something that maybe she hasn't done?
I think with anything, there's a certain amount of, you've got to place value on yourself to make changes like that, and so a lot of times people don't make changes in their life because they don't value who they are and they don't value their self. And so I would say first get connected with someone who can see your value and really can speak into those things, because I think when you connect with people who really see your value, that really helps you begin to see yourself that way. Mm-hmm. And so then, of course, I would go back to the thing of saying, then find some small practical steps that will just give you a little bit of momentum, a little bit of confidence, especially if you're a person who tends to be a little gun shy. Some small victories that make you feel like, and even if you take 10 small steps, they are 10 places forward where you weren't before.
Right.
And so I think before you know it, you've taken 20 of those and you look back and you're in a totally different place than you were before. So I think those are probably two things I think would be the most powerful things up front early on that could really empower you to make some small choices that could make monumental differences in your life.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. So good.
Yeah.
So good. Okay. So Erica, if our listeners wanted to learn a little bit more about you, what you've got going on, where do we send them?
So I am in the process right now of launching a webpage, but I haven't done it yet.
Okay.
So I would say right now, you can find me on Facebook at Erica LeBlanc, or on Instagram at Erica_LeBlanc_LSU for LSU Tigers out there, because I'm a big LSU alumni. But so it's Erica_LeBlanc_LSU. And I will be launching that page soon. And so hopefully that will be done by the end of the year. I would like to have it earlier than later. But once that goes live, I'll have content available on there, and I will have, opportunities to be able to be in touch, even, to do other speaking engagements, things of that nature.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
And we'll make sure, too, when this goes out, that we get you tagged and get it to the right information. That way, if you want to share it or whatever.
Sure.
So, and if people want to reach out, they can find you as well.
That'd be great.
This has been awesome.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing with us. You're amazing. I love what you're doing. I do want to say to our listeners, of course, if you enjoy our podcast, please be sure you give us a rating on iTunes. And we are on iHeart and Amazon. Check out YouTube and hit that subscribe button. And with that, I do want to leave you guys with a couple final thoughts. I'm like, got to find my notes again here. All right. Being happy, this is going to kind of resonate with you. Being happy doesn't mean that everything is perfect. It means that you've decided to look beyond the imperfections.
Yes.
Isn't that good?
Yeah.
So good. It fits so well with what we talked about today. I never know when I pick these if they're going to fit, and sometimes they just work out. I love it. All right, and then my final thought here is, in order to have success, you must start, and that start begins with the decision. All right, you guys take care, be safe, and be kind to one another. We will see you next time.